What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to the Locks DFS NFL Cash Game Breakdown video. I am your host, Christian Hardy. Buy Hardy on Twitter right here. As you can see, hit me with a follow there. And Buy Hardy on DraftKings. I am from LocksDFS.com, the lone sponsor of this video. Please go check us out, LocksDFS.com, for all of our great content going through showdowns, giving you player grades, analysis, and locks on every single NFL slate, including the showdowns, like I said. Check us out, LocksDFS.com. We are going to be going through this Week 11 NFL slate. I'm actually going to be, because I have so many plays for this slate, I'm going to be cutting out the stacks. So if you want to hear my favorite stacks, hopefully you remember, you can get into the Slack chat if you remember, and I can answer some of those questions there. There are some good ones on the slate, of course, I'll be using in 3-entry max type stuff. But before we get into that, be sure to comment on this video. You'll be entered to win a free season pass from LocksDFS.com. Comment with your favorite cash play of the week. And let me know who you guys are jamming into your lineups. And with that, you'll be entered to win a free season pass from LocksDFS.com. Every single week, we like to give back to you guys who watch these videos, who get subscribed to us. If you are subscribed, you'll be entered to win that free season pass from LocksDFS. We'll give it away on the Thursday night showdown video that will come out on Wednesday night. So with all that said, let's go ahead and do a quick review of last week's team. Like I said in the video, I was jamming Lamar Jackson, I was jamming Christian McCaffrey, and I was jamming Michael Thomas. That was never changing. I mean, those guys were staying in the lineup. Somehow Lamar Jackson was 26% in cash. Somehow Christian McCaffrey was 36% in cash. That one makes a little bit more sense. But those three guys I was never getting off of. Obviously, all of them came through. That was the first big step of this lineup that really helped me out. That obviously it was a great week, top of this double up here. Not a massive double up. I guess 454. It was an awesome week. Like I'm not gonna downplay it too much. Ate the Christian Kirk chalk. I was a little bit concerned about playing on the outside, but overall just kept fitting into builds. Was just the guy I kept going to in that mid-range of wide receiver. Obviously I touted AJ Brown pretty hard on this video. Really was into AJ Brown. Obviously it was pretty chalky as well. He didn't come through. They didn't move the ball a whole lot in the first half, and then second half he did end up getting a catch and a few targets, but just not a lot happening there. I didn't watch a lot of the game, to be honest with you, until the end, so I'm not really sure what happened there, but he just didn't come through. He was a cheap wide receiver play, so he didn't need to do a whole lot, but obviously if I wanted to bink something, he was going to have to do more than that. Damian Williams, obviously, Sunday morning, if you were in the Slack chat, we pretty much had him as a dead lock. And only ended up at 42% in cash games, I guess possibly because of the David Montgomery ownership brought him down a little bit. But, man, I was already a little bit interested in Damian Williams, and then you get the news that he is going to be, probably featured pretty heavily with LaShawn McCoy out. Gets you 24 touches in this game. Awesome game from him. And then Ronald Jones, he got there on one drive, to be honest with you. He was already there in the first half, first drive, and then only rushes for 29 yards total. Obviously, catches 8 passes as well, which is we expected him, I mentioned on this video, to have a little bit of a passing role, but not much of one. Definitely never would have expected 8 targets. Or eight catches. That was definitely some run good there, and that was crucial. That was a crucial piece to have a 20, especially with so many people playing David Montgomery. To have Ronald Jones do that was really crucial, of course. And then just landed on Rhett Ellison because I wanted to play those 3 studs. It's pretty much as simple as that. And got Steelers in my lineup. I actually had a few builds where Steelers were not in there, so I was very fortunate to end up with them in there. It feels good to actually play a good defense. Obviously, they got there super heavy. They got a pick off of a punter that helped as well. They got those sacks, and they were just extremely underpriced for how good they were. I could not believe the ownership on them because we're playing an actual good defense at home against the Rams. I was very surprised to see that, but it is what it is. They came through. That obviously, them and Christian McCaffrey in the afternoon slate really helped move me up at the end there. So that is pretty much the extent of the build this week. I'm actually going to touch on some defenses this week. I've decided on that as well. But we're not doing stacks, so we'll get to some defenses. Okay. Let's get into my favorite quarterback play. Surprise, Lamar Jackson is my favorite quarterback play again this week. We're looking at a game total here that is, I believe it is, hold on, I have it pulled up right here. I think it's a 51 game total. Yeah, 51 game total. It's the highest total on the slate. This is, I talked about in this video, every time I talk about Lamar Jackson, that every time you roster Lamar, you do have the possibility of him going for 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing, getting that double bonus, which, puts him at pretty much 40 points, like pretty easily. He's going to get to 40 points if you're giving him all that. This is actually a game that can happen because he hasn't really played in a lot of shootouts so far this year. The New England game, they scored 37 points in, but they were able to run the ball with ease in that game. Seattle wasn't able to put up points on them. There's no games here where like both teams are putting up 30 points. Okay, this Kansas City game is one, and if he does a little bit more rushing, he could potentially get there. I mean, he's not far away in that game. I definitely think that's the potential in this game. Obviously, I mean, I don't really need to talk much more about Lamar Jackson. Obviously, floor is insanely high because he's rushing over 60 yards in every game since week 4, and he's got 6 rushing touchdowns in that time as well. He's going to have no problems throwing on this Texans secondary that doesn't create a lot of Texans secondary that isn't very good, and then the line isn't creating a lot of pressure. And it's just a reminder that you legitimately are getting a running back and a quarterback in one spot at 7,700, 800 more, only 800 more than the next quarterback. He is in a tier of his own at quarterback. There's no arguing that, in my opinion. And I would really like to play him in cash games. If I'm not playing Lamar Jackson, I'm going to be punting quarterback. You could call it a punt. There are 2 guys. Kyle Allen, I think he's a little bit expensive, but I think 5,300 is a pretty solid discount to be getting. It's the 3rd highest team total of the week at 26.75, I believe. I think that's right. For Kyle Allen, obviously Atlanta's 31st pass defense. Sorry, they're not the 3rd team total of the week. They're like the 4th. Yeah, they're like the 4th team total of the week. I apologize for that. I was thinking that seemed high. I forgot about Oakland. Atlanta, so regardless, 26.75 team total, very solid team total. Atlanta, 31st pass defense DVOA. It's pretty much the best matchup that you can ask for Kyle Allen. And Atlanta has just regularly been torched by opposing quarterbacks this year. We've seen some solid games from Kyle Allen, but he is mostly just a game manager. I don't really think you're getting a ceiling there with Allen, although he can get you to like 18 points with a touchdown or 2 passing. And the last guy I'll consider, and again, I'm not at all excited about this one at all. I mean, I just want to play Lamar Jackson, if we're being honest. But Jeff Driscoll is going to be the guy I'm going to talk about, and I know it seems very, very gross, but here's the thing. Jeff Driscoll is going to add a little bit of a rushing floor. He did it in college. He ran around a 4.5 coming into the draft, something like that. It might be a little bit high. I think it was in the mid 4.5s. So he's a fast guy. He can get out and run. Obviously, they're missing their starting quarterback, but we saw him pass 46 times last week. We saw him run 5 times for 37 yards. That speed should continue to give him a rushing floor here against Dallas. Obviously, Dallas is going to create pressure. Their secondary isn't great, but they do have some strong spots on the secondary. And of course, like I said, the D line is going to create pressure for sure. Obviously, the team total isn't great for Detroit either. 19.75. They are at home, but they're indoors, but it's not great here. It's pretty thin to some extent, but I do think that if you're that could save you $3,000 from Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's worth it to save, but other than that, there's really no quarterbacks that I'm too interested in. And, maybe in GPPs you can get to a guy, Drew Brees, you can get to a guy, Tom Brady 6,400 that no one's gonna play, I don't think. But I'm just there's not a lot. Josh Allen is another one there. There's not a lot there for me. Okay, moving on to running back. Of course, every single week, Christian McCaffrey. If you can play him, you play him. If you can find a way to play him, you play him. And there are multiple ways to play him this week. Not only can you play 2 cheap running backs behind him, that we'll get to here shortly, if you wanted to do that. You could also. There are plenty of wide receiver punts that we'll talk about as well. So it's just easy to get to McCaffrey this week. It's a little bit harder on FanDuel, but I still think you can do it on FanDuel as well with so much mid-range wide receiver value. The Falcons are known for giving up the catches to running backs, but they haven't done it as much this year. Regardless, I still expect C-Mac to have a receiving role. I mean, we saw him with 7 targets last week, and that wasn't a great matchup in terms of how the linebackers cover the running backs, but we've known the Falcons to not be good at that in the past, and they are missing their strong safety. So I think that could, I think McCaffrey could definitely make some noise in the passing game. He's clearly the top play of the week here. I mean, he's got you a floor of 130 total yards, a few catches, and a touchdown. You just can't find that kind of floor anywhere in any other guy. I mean, absolutely. Some people are going to play Zeke. I'm not as interested. He could get volume, but he looks like a fullback. He looks terrible right now. I'd much prefer to get to Dalvin Cook, who obviously you're going to get to because of 100 less. Thielen is still out, and when Thielen's out, Cook has had a massive receiving role. That is actually the primary reason I am interested in this play, because here's the thing with Cook is that he's giving up a lot of snaps to the other 2 running backs, ceding a lot of snaps to Abdullah on 3rd downs, a lot of snaps to Madison just on random. If Dalvin Cook rips off a 15-yard run, they'll bring in Madison for a snap or 2. So he's losing some snaps that way. But at the end of the day, Minnesota is going to dominate this game in terms of time of possession. They're going to dominate this game because Denver doesn't have a good run defense. They're going to be able to run the ball with ease. Obviously, the Vikings are missing Thielen, so I'm not sure how much they're going to want to pass in general. I think Cook has a pretty safe touch floor here, even though he is ceding some touches elsewhere, unless it gets out of hand and they do just want to run Madison in the second half or something. I don't expect that to happen. But I do think the Minnesota defense is a very good stack with Dalvin Cook. The issue with Cook, like I said, just giving up some carries. Sorry, I was going through my notes. Got excited about that one. We already said that. There are some ways for Cook to fail here, which is why I prefer getting to McCaffrey. But I do think there are some builds where you can play Dalvin Cook as well with McCaffrey. And we'll talk about plenty of value in this video that will show you the way to do that. Josh Jacobs is definitely my favorite running back after those guys. And I think you're getting a discount on a guy that can be a workhorse in this offense. We have not seen a game like this for Oakland where they are heavily favored. It's an aggressive line, if we're being honest, at 11 points for Oakland. Obviously, the Bengals are terrible in pretty much every single aspect. Ryan Finley, I don't think he's terrible, but he's not going to be better than a game manager in this league if he does stick around. I think Oakland should create lots of pressure on him, and I think they're gonna struggle in pretty much every aspect of the game, including on defense, where Josh Jacobs is priced 6,900, and he's played only a season high 66% of snaps, but in this game flow, in this game environment at home as an 11-point favorite, I think this could be the game where we see Jacobs play more snaps than he's played all season long. It's definitely concerning that he has no passing role, but in this game script, I'm not too concerned about that. I think that we're going to see Jacobs play between 65 and 75% of the snaps here, get around 20 to 25 touches here. Obviously, we've seen his ceiling for touches be higher than that. So at 28 against Detroit, if you're not watching the screen right now, because I highlighted it. It just could be an absolute busted out game for Jacobs, who has looked like one of the best running backs in the league at times this season. In some people's minds, he has been behind McCaffrey and Cook. I said one of, not the best. Obviously, McCaffrey is the best running back in the league. You have to be a little bit concerned about the game flow here, but that's just one path for Jacobs to fail. But other than that, I don't see a lot of paths for Jacobs to fail. I do think that if I'm not going to be playing Cook and McCaffrey, I will be going down to Jacobs as my running back 2 in all likelihood. However, there is another discount here at Tevin Coleman. I'm not going to talk about Coleman as much. I'm a little bit concerned about. Obviously, we have Matt Breida doubtful, so that's going to play into Tevin Coleman's role. You would expect him to get more snaps because of that. Expect him to get more touches around the red zone, have a more guaranteed touch share around the red zone. Unfortunately, we're probably going to see Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson back him up. So Mostert can play the Breida role, I think, pretty easily. And I also think that Wilson could potentially steal touchdowns from Coleman. There are a lot more paths for Coleman to fail than there are for Jacobs to fail, in my opinion. Although I do expect San Francisco to control the game, I have no doubts about that. And Coleman has been much better at home this year. We still have to be somewhat concerned about the volume in this game. Even in that game that we got him right and we had him in cash, he only got 11 touches. He only got 13 touches in that game. 13 opportunities to touch the ball. If he's only getting 13, 15 touches to chances, pay up for Jacobs every single time because he's touching the ball at least 20 times in this game. Obviously, like I said, lots of routes for Coleman to fail. I think he's definitely still a cash play because Breida's out. I think we're going to, like I said, probably going to be seeing more like 15 to 18 touches is what I think. It's got a good matchup against Arizona, who's giving up like 4.5 yards per carry to running backs or something like that. So, and then after that, for me, it's a pretty big drop off. I don't mind Drake and GPPs. He looks like he has been important to them so far. And then we pretty much get down here to Brian Hill. Brian Hill looked terrible last week against New Orleans. Devonta Freeman got injured. Hill had to come in. Devonta Freeman is out in this game with that foot injury. So we're going to see Hill lead the way again. Obviously, Ito Smith, also on IR. So Hill is, the only guy on this team that really knows the offense that's going to be carrying the load here. Should be in line for, again, at least 20 touches, possibly a bit more. And as the only running back in this backfield, he's going to be playing on passing downs as well in a lot of times. So, we saw those 2 targets last week. I'm unsure of what he did in college. He played for a small college, I think like Southern Mississippi or something. I didn't look those stats up. I would be interested in that to know. But I think he's got the best. So we're going to talk about 2 other cheap running backs here in a second. I think he's got the best touch floor and best game environment. Maybe not best game environment. Potentially, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I would say actually best game environment for Brian Hill. If you include the Carolina's rushing defense has been 32nd in DVOA this year, who have just been pounced by the run. I mean, we look at the matchup, 136 yards rushing per game, 29th in just raw rushing yards. So Hill makes a ton of sense. If you are paying down, he is, I believe, as of now, my preference to pay down for. One guy I'll touch on, but I'm not too interested in, Kalen Ballage. Buffalo's rush defense actually hasn't been as good as a lot of people think. They are, I believe, 27th in rushing defense, DVOA. They sell out to the pass a lot, and it makes sense because they have a great secondary. They will open up the middle of the field a bit. They've given up 9 rushing touchdowns this year. They are giving up 115 rushing yards per game, which is 21st. So, yeah, I mean, there's a route here for Ballage to do his thing. I mean, he's got Coach Speak on his side. Brian Flores says that they want to keep getting him snaps. They want to keep, favoring him. They're giving him all the touches in practice. They want to give him all the touches, keep giving him all the touches. At 4,300, getting a guy that's getting all the touches in the backfield, definitely interesting. They are only 6.5 dogs on the road. Or no, at home, sorry. They are 6.5 dogs at home. Some people think that they are going to be able to compete in this game. And I wouldn't be too shocked if they can get a few turnovers off Josh Allen or something like that. Definitely makes sense. But the Bills still have a great overall defense, so you got to be a little bit concerned about the Dolphins just being able to keep up, being able to move the ball. Obviously, just offense is getting those red zone opportunities is so important when you're talking about a running back to roster on your DFS team. So that's the biggest concern with the Ballage. Moving down a little bit more. IR, Jordan Howard has been limited in practice all week, and he's listed as questionable. It sounds a little bit more likely he's not going to play, but he definitely could end up playing this in an afternoon game, so we're going to be hoping that we get a Schefter bomb in the morning to learn more about Howard and if we can play Sanders. Sanders, he is I believe he plays some punt returner, kick returner for them with Sproles out. He runs a decent amount of routes. As you can see, three targets. I mean, he pretty much averages 3 targets a game there. And he's got amazing speed. He could potentially be a 3-down back if they wanted him to be, which could be the case this week. They did sign Jay Ajayi off the street. We don't really know whether he's going to be active, how much he's going to play. Sanders could end up playing like 75% of the snaps here. I'm trying to think about who else they have, because I do know they have one other player. Yeah, they have Boston Scott. Forget about Boston Scott. So he could play a little bit. He give Sanders some breather. He get some inside the tackles runs. And I do think that Philadelphia has a little bit of an advantage here in the trenches against New England. We've seen their run defense be a little bit vulnerable over the last few weeks. At 4.1, what I really love about Sanders is that his floor in terms is so elevated because of his passing game role, especially as he's going to be playing more snaps, especially as Alshon Jeffrey is out. I think it's going to really, really elevate his floor, especially at that price. I think he's got a great floor, even better than Brian Hill because of those catches. If he catches 4 balls, you've already got 4 points there. Whatever he does rushing-wise, whatever he does passing-wise, if he scores a touchdown, that's a great floor. If you can get 4 catches for 20 yards, which I think he could do more than that, that's 6 points right there. So whatever he does rushing, like I said, he could potentially be the goal line back, even though he is small. He did that in college plenty. So yeah, Miles Sanders, guy who's very, very he was a free he was a pretty solid spark score guy, all that sort of stuff. Very fast 40 coming out of college. He makes a lot of sense in this game, even a tough matchup, even as a 3.5 point dog. That's actually a closer line than I would expect. 3.5 point dog at home. That actually makes me like Sanders a little bit more. That Vegas thinks that it's going to stay close. Either way for Sanders, like I said, I think he has a floor either way. It's a tough decision to make with Hill and Sanders. I do think as I've been building my teams, I've built a lot leading up to this video. That 700 to go down to Sanders definitely does play a big factor in my other decisions on my team. So it's a decision you're going to have to make. If Jordan Howard, we hear that Jordan Howard's in, it's a decision you won't have to make. It's just going to be Brian Hill there as your cheap running back. Okay. I guess there's probably some route to not play any of these cheap running backs, but I don't know why you do that to yourself on this week with these 3 guys down here. I'd play one of them and be able to pay up for maybe a receiver spot or something like that. Obviously, moving on to wide receiver now. Obviously, Michael Thomas at the top, but to me, he's just too expensive to play in cash. He's not going to fit into any of your constructions, especially if you're playing Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey. You got to play like Jeff Driscoll if you're going to be playing Michael Thomas in cash this week, in my opinion. But that said, Bucs are terrible versus slot. Thomas is still on pace to break the single-season reception record, but it's just not the construction that I have right now. I'm more likely to prioritize Cook. McCaffrey. I'm more likely to prioritize Cook and McCaffrey. So yeah, while he's interesting, I'm not gonna be able to get there. But all these receivers under him that are just the next tier below, because he is in a tier pretty much all by his own up there. They're all pretty interesting. DeAndre Hopkins is a nice run back piece in GPPs for that game. Amari Cooper has been pretty dominant. Darius Slay looks like he's been playing pretty banged up. Amari Cooper has dominated man coverage. Julian Edelman gets a great matchup against Philadelphia secondary in what's expected to be a close game. Julio Jones is going to be covered by Bradbury, so a little bit less interest there, but in terms of raw numbers, he will project pretty well at that price. Mike Evans, crushing Godwin in air yards this year. Marshawn Lattimore is out. He is a very, very solid cash game play. Probably the pay-up option I'm looking for in cash games as of now, and a guy that fits into a lot of my lineups. Obviously, Godwin's going to play the slot against them. That's not a bad spot either. Stephon Diggs could draw some Chris Harris, I believe, but still, with no Thielen, he's a solid play. So there you can make a case for all these guys up here. Evans is my favorite for cash games. I won't go too far into any of them because I'm going to talk about some cheaper running backs or wide receivers this week. Just because, like I said, I'm going to either be paying up for Cook or Jacobs in my running back too. So going to need some cheaper wide receivers here. First guy that pops up is DJ Moore. I think he will be the potential chalk wide receiver 1 this week. I'm not sure if it's going to be wide receiver 1. I'm unsure of what builds people are going with exactly. Like, how owned is Lamar going to be? Because to me, he's like a just play him every week. I don't know if it's the same way for other people because he was only 26% owned last week. So I don't know what people are doing there. To me, it's very obvious to just play Lamar Jackson. But yeah, I mean, DJ Moore could definitely end up being the wide receiver 1 for people. Still under 6,000, great matchup versus a team giving up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. He's averaging over 10 targets per game over the last 4. Atlanta, obviously, just a nut matchup for opposing wide receivers, giving up 260 passing yards per game. DJ Moore is going to have a very solid share of that. He's a much safer play than like a Curtis Samuel, who's just pretty much running, deep routes down the sideline and needs a deep touchdown to usually get there. So DJ Moore, awesome floor, awesome cash play. Definitely think that he could smash this week, and definitely think that he is due for he hasn't had a ton of red zone targets, but I think that just based on the amount of volume he's getting in games, to only be getting 6 red zone targets all year, it's gonna regress at some point, and he is due for some massive touchdown regression here, in my opinion. And that could definitely hit this week. Part of me with Moore is thinking about Kirk last week and thinking about how I might just want to block. If Moore is going to be this massive chalk that Kirk was last week, I don't hate the play, and he can fit in my construction pretty easily, so I might just end up blocking there and not thinking about other guys in cash games. Obviously, a great GPP pivot off of him. Going down a little bit, this is a little bit more GPP oriented, I'll be honest. I'm not actually sure what the ownership is on this guy, Terry McLaurin, but man, these Jets cornerbacks are so bad, man. These Jets are so bad, especially for a guy like Terry who has insane speed, who can run his routes all over the field. Who, like once you get to the open field, these Jets cornerbacks are too slow. They're not going to catch him. They're going to have a problem. Dwayne Haskins has targeted McLaurin that's been his most targeted receiver this year. Obviously, you have the shower narrative there with Dwayne Haskins playing with Terry McLaurin since 2016. They came into the league together. This is going to come through at some point, and this could definitely be the spot. I mean, this is about the best secondary to face in the NFL. I mean, it's probably the Bucs, the Eagles, the Jets are some of the best spots that you can face. And this is absolutely one of them for McLaurin. 5.6K is the cheapest he's been since he really emerged. I really love Terry McLaurin this week. And I think he is an awesome GPP pivot off of Moore. And you can also play him next to Moore if you only want to play one cheap wide receiver, which we talk about the cheap wide receiver here in a second. Tyler Boyd, interesting to me as well at 5.2K. A little bit, like at least with, I guess, I just talked about Dwayne Haskins. I was thinking that I was talking about like Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold, but yeah, I mean, Haskins, I guess, hasn't proven himself at all to this extent. Finley has proven himself, honestly, arguably more than Haskins has to this point. Raiders have been torched by guys in the slot, though, and Boyd continues to see those consistent targets with the Bengals. Despite these tough matchups, Baltimore, Rams, Jacksonville, Baltimore. Actually, the Rams aren't a super tough matchup, but he got 8 targets in his first game with Ryan Finley, 5.2K. You're getting a very, very solid cash game play here. I'm a little bit concerned about the upside just in terms of this offensive production. Their team total is 18.75, so it's not a super exciting cash game play for me, but I think he's in play. Mohamed Sanu also right below him. If you want a safe target floor, it seems like Sanu played 100% of the snaps last week. Philadelphia, like I said, they're not gonna be able to cover these. Anyone. They can't cover anyone. So Sanu 5.1K, like I said, it wasn't last week, before the bye week, 14 targets, 100% of the snaps. Gotta love that. I wouldn't be surprised to see quite a bit of ownership on him as exposure to the Patriots. If you want a GPP pivot off Sanu, very low owned. Auden Tate, second in air yards with Finley last week, 4th in by yards air low model. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about Tyler Boyd, but Auden Tate, guy who's still very cheap. And the Raiders aren't creating a lot of pass rush, which I think could give the opportunity to get the ball to Auden Tate. I'm going really long in these wide receivers. I'm sorry about that, guys. But we are getting here to the chalk wide receiver. I think everyone pretty much is going to play him in cash. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be like 50, 55% in cash. Certainly if Emmanuel Sanders sits out, he is questionable, didn't practice all week. It does not sound like he's going to play. If he does play, I doubt that he's able to play his full allotment of snaps unless we get word otherwise. Sanders... Yeah, I mean, I think he leans doubtful. So Samuel played a season-high 73 snaps last week, saw a team-high 11 targets, albeit after Sanders was out with that injury. But that is definitely optimistic, the fact that he did play those 11 targets. In that absence, we've been waiting kind of for Samuel to have his breakout game. Obviously, he did that on that showdown slate. He's just a cheaper, low-owned option he down on this slate this week. And, if you're getting that target volume, even you're getting 8-9 targets here from Deebo Samuel, assuming that Sanders is out, you got to love that. Obviously, Arizona, they do have Patrick Peterson, but he hasn't been super great this year. And Samuel also moves around the formation quite a bit. So I don't think that we're going to see Patrick Peterson shadow Samuel too much. Lastly, wide receiver punt that I have actually played with in cash games, and I do not hate it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't hate Russell Gage in cash. Definitely, your floor is almost nothing. I'm going to be honest with you. He could score he could go 2 for 26. That is absolutely an outcome that you could get here. But 5 targets last week after 9 in the game prior. He's taken over this new role in this offense. Now you have Austin Hooper, who is out. That is going to open up even more for Sanu. I would like to see actually even what Hooper's target share. I mean, 5 targets, 7 targets, 5, 8. That's pretty significant in this offense. You got Russell Gage, who is playing pretty much all the snaps in this offense. Actually, I don't have that in my notes. Let's go ahead and pull up how much Russell Gage is playing for the Falcons right now at 3,300. He is playing 59% and 62% of the snaps in his first 2 games without Sanu. So, definitely love to see that. And I think that potentially we could see that go up because I think the 2 tight end sets are going to go down quite possibly with no Hooper. So, Russell Gage, 3,300, guy with a role, a legit role on his team, playing the slot. You're obviously going to have, like I said at the beginning of the video, you're going to have the Panthers shadowing Julio Jones with James Bradbury. Bradbury, one of the elite corners in the league, in my opinion. And I think there are stats about that back that up, not off the top of my head. But Panthers also just in general banged up in their secondary and have been terrible in the slot this year. There is a lot going in Russell Gage's favor. Obviously, guy who came in this season as a special teamer, wasn't expected to have a role on this team. But man, a 3.3K guy with a role, a legit role, playing 60+% of the snaps. Austin Hooper's targets are gone. I think that we see Russell Gage get 7 targets here. If I'm getting 7 targets at 3,300, I'll take it. It's going to let me get a lot of stuff in my lineups, and I really like that for Russell Gage. Also, not to mention the fact that I don't think we're going to see Brian Hill do much receiving, and Devonta Freeman usually would do a little bit more. So, obviously, FanDuel just didn't touch the pricing this week. Apparently, everyone's been talking about that. Every show I watch talks about how they didn't touch the pricing this week. Calvin Ridley still 5,500 over on FanDuel. Pops in the buy low air yards model, and still continues to just be an awesome cash play. And there's more. John Brown is under 6K over there. DJ Moore is at 6K. Sanu's down there. I mean, if I'm playing on FanDuel, just play those guys. Just play those cheap wide receivers. Cheap-ish wide receivers and move on from there. Okay, moving on to the second to last position. Like I said, I'm going to touch on defense in this video. We have the tight end position. I think we're going to get a decent amount of ownership on Darren Waller, who is due for a positive regression game. Defenses are starting to kind of hone on Darren Waller. I mean, they have been since about this spot. They've been honing in on him. So that's definitely tough for Waller, but hopefully, and also not to mention the fact that since Renfrow has gone up in snaps, we've seen Waller go down in targets. That definitely that hurts. The middle of the field being taken away a little bit in terms of his volume in the middle of the field for Waller. But still, 5,500. Got the guy leading the team in targets so far this year. Obviously, Tyrell Williams missing some games helps that out a little bit, but man, I think Waller, we're going to see him continue to get about 8 targets a game at some point in this season. And Cincinnati just doesn't have the guys on defense, safety, or linebackers that are going to be able to hang with Waller, I don't think, for most of this game. So I think he's a very strong cash play. And I've seen some very sharp people around the industry very, very high on Waller this week, and it makes a lot of sense. He's going to project very, very well. Greg Olsen will actually likely be the chalkiest tight end, I think, as of now. From the projections I have seen, a few different projections I've seen, I think Greg Olsen will be the likely chalkiest tight end. And he's also one of my favorites. 10 and 6 targets over the last 2 weeks and gets the team missing their starting strong safety that's given up 4 touchdowns to tight ends over the last 7 games. One issue with Greg Olsen is that if you are playing DJ Moore, obviously I'm jamming Christian McCaffrey. So if you're playing DJ Moore, I'm not really sure I'm trying to get 3 Carolina guys on my team. That's a heavy share of the offense. I'm not sure they all can all get there. I like to play single entries in my cash game. I like to have a little bit of an upside. Just not sure I want to do that. Limit myself that much. That might not be a good reason not play Greg Olsen. It doesn't mean he's not a good play. But if I have those two in my cash lineup, I think Greg Olsen might be the one that falls out of it. Potentially, but he's definitely still a very, very solid cash game play. 6 red zone targets in 9 games this year, positive game environment, nearly a 50 team total. Makes a lot of sense. Zach Ertz is cheap as well, but like I said, not too high on playing guys against New England unless they're. That's definitely interesting to me. I do expect them to run a little bit more 2 tight end sets, which I think also hurts Zach Ertz because Dallas Goedert's going to be on the field, and Wentz can definitely go to Goddard over. Who did I say is out? Alshon Jeffrey is out. If I don't know if I said that. So I think they're going on more 2 tight end sets, and when Goddard's on the field, Ertz takes a little bit of hit because of that. Goddard is very cheap. He's in play. And then lastly, I got to mention the flow chart. I have to mention the flow chart. Ross Dwelley, I know, dude's a terrible athlete. Dude is a terrible athlete. Runs like a 4.9, 40. We played him on the showdown on Monday night. I think it was Monday night. Had 7 targets, played 92% of the snaps. Didn't have an awesome game. I think he only had I'm trying to find him here. Ross Dwelley. Is he cheaper than this? Okay, you know what, dude? I feel like he's on my screen. I just looked right over him. Anyway, 3 catches, only had 24 yards. A lot of those coming in the second half when they were playing that back and forth. Extremely slow, not super talented, but man, if he's going to be getting this share of the targets against a Arizona defense that is missing a semblance of a defense in the middle of the field that has extremely untalented safeties, it's definitely interesting to me. Ross Dwelley is. Goddard's cheaper. That's also something that we should know. Goddard is cheaper than him, and I think Goddard's a little bit safer, but I do think that Dwelley is gonna be a part of this offense. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 6 targets again in this game, in a pace up spot against the defense that can't play tight ends. He could potentially. I don't think he's gonna be owned. I'm gonna be on. I don't think he's gonna be owned. Everyone hates Dwelley. I understand it. I really do understand it. But I think the matchup is good. I know it sounds so fish because I'm just like, ooh, number 1 versus tight end, or against the tight end's number 1 against Arizona. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I think that Dwelley, 92% of the snaps, running a decent amount of routes, 7 targets last week. He's definitely a play for me. I think the floor is low, but definitely someone that I'm considering in cash that can give me a little bit extra salary to do something elsewhere, and also to not play 3 Carolina Panthers. So, defense-wise, for cash games, as of now, a lot of my builds I've been making, I'm just playing the Cardinals. Jimmy Garoppolo, they've been better at home. San Francisco has, which definitely concerns me. They could actually put Arizona in negative in terms of that, but they are missing both of their starting tackles. Chandler Jones should do some solid work against the 49ers. I think that they have a floor of 3 or 4 points because of those sacks, potential turnovers. Garoppolo can potentially or occasionally gun it a little bit and misfire. And they're missing Breida, they're missing Kittle. So that it just makes a little bit of sense to target them. I do wish they were on the road. I wish Arizona was at home, but man, at 1,500, they are projecting as the best on the slate. And if they get 6 points, you're happy with that. That's 4x. If you're not playing them, you pretty much are not playing anyone here. Jets are okay; they're getting a little bit of hype, but I'm not too interested there. It's decent. If I'm not playing the Cardinals, I'm actually going to probably go all the way up to the Vikings. I think at 3,400. I think that they will. Think that they're going to dominate this. Brandon Allen, dude is probably going to explode at some point. Game in Minnesota. It makes sense as that game for them to just get absolutely plowed. They're probably my favorite up here. The Colts are fine. Against Nick Foles. Why are they starting Nick Foles? That's so bad. So NFL teams, man, with their decisions sometimes blow my mind. Redskins are okay too. They're not going to get a lot of pass rush, which I want to see my defensive line get pressure. So it's probably just me, the Vikings and the Cardinals. That's why I said with the Cardinals, I do think that they're going to be able to beat these tackles, these backup tackles, and get to Garoppolo a little bit. And if they can get to Garoppolo, they can maybe cause some pressure, maybe cause him to make some errant throws. At 1,500, I'll take the chance. Maybe they do something crazy. They're probably my favorite cash game play, and I think they're likely to be the highest owned cash game defense, although it's probably not going to be more than like 30% because the ownership tends to go kind of everywhere on most slates unless there's an obvious very cheap defense, which is not the case. So lately, DraftKings have been very, very solid on the pricing. I do remember the Panthers are very cheap on FanDuel at 3,700. They're solid, and they should create a decent amount of pass rush. That defensive line is very solid. So in terms of creating a rush. Okay, that is going to wrap it up for my Week 11 breakdown. Like I said, not going to be doing any game stacks on this video because I feel like I've run so long already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys coming back here, watching my videos, and watching the cash game breakdown. Hopefully you guys did well last week. Hopefully you guys are going to be doing well this Sunday. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ByHardy. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. Those both help us out so much. And also comment for a chance to win that free season pass from LocksDFS.com. And with all that said, good luck this week. Hope you guys win some money, and I will see you guys back here next time. Peace.